Lake Okoboji in the northwestern part of Iowa has a rich and storied history that is often overshadowed by its summer tourism facade. My family has been traveling to Okoboji first time was 40 years ago, a little over 40 years ago, and has continuously done it for the last 26 straight. We do your typical summer vacation-y stuff. We'll go tubing, we'll ride the boat, we'll sit on a dock, we'll go to restaurants, sometimes hit up the amusement park whenever we want to. But what I've noticed throughout all of our adventures is that often there's small signs that give historical information that everybody looks right over top of or never actually takes into account. Well, I decided to look into what these signs actually say on them and do a little background information. Turns out, Okoboji has a very strong history that nobody ever really hears about. Well, it all started way back when with the glaciers, which way back when. So nearly 100,000 years ago, according to the Iowa Great Lakes Corridor of 2020, 100,000 years ago, the Wisconsin Glacier receded across Iowa and left in its wake what we now call the Great Lakes of Iowa, which includes Spirit Lake, East and West Lake Okoboji, Upper and Lower Gar Lake, and Lake Minnewaska. The last three are not as well known, but East and West Okoboji seem to have more prominence, and then Spirit close behind them. What's super interesting to me about this is that they actually weren't all named until much later. In 1857, settlers had slowly begun to move into the Spirit Lake area, and then there was a severe winter, very severe, and Native Americans came in and they either murdered or kidnapped 33 settlers from the east. This didn't bode well with the eastern settlers, and they decided to call the area Spirit Lake in remembrance of those that they lost. By 1859, the lake had gained enough notoriety to where people had begun to move into it and start to settle harder. And by 1859, they had decided on East and West Lake Okoboji, Upper and Lower Gar Lake, and Lake Minnewaska as the names of the other 5 interconnected lakes to make up the final 5 Great Lakes, including the Big Spirit. What really helped them prosper after that 1859 point and helped them move on further is the steamboat industry, which at a time, according to Julie Bunchner of the Globe, who wrote an article in 2010 about all the steamboats, at one time there could be 83 steamboats running around the lake, along with a few canoes, but the majority of the water travel was done by steamboat. And one of the most prominent of the steamboats was the Queen. She was a large vessel, but basically she'd just drive around, and if anybody had a white flag on the shore and would wave it, they would stop and pick them up, and that's how people were able to get around the lake. Because of this, the Queen ran for nearly 89 years on her own, until one day they decided she'd better off in an amusement park in Altoona, Iowa called Adventureland, where she now sits as a decoration. The locals of the area did not take kindly to the loss of their precious ship and decided they wanted another one. So they pushed back against the city leaders and they decided to buy a new one, an exact replica that's only 3 feet wider, and called it the Queen II. She now runs all across the lake and serves the exact same purpose, just with a little more tourism involved and more revealing history of the lake itself. But as of now, she's not the only boat on the lake like her predecessor. There are now stands currently anything from a kayak to a houseboat that runs all across the lake. And kayaks, houseboats, speedboats, you name it, the richest of the rich and the poorest of the poor, fishing boats, all of them run back and forth across the lake. The lake shores are lined with hotels and amusement parks, restaurants, beaches, anything a tourist could ever hope for. The beauty of it is that it not only brings life to the area, but it also brings a ton of economic revenue. According to the Travel Federation of Iowa in 2019, Okoboji, through the months of June, July, and August, per day was averaging over $1 million just in the city of Okoboji for tourist revenue. Because of this, I feel that people show up to Okoboji now just to enjoy the waters and the fun times in summer vacation, which rightfully so, as since 1857, Okoboji has worked hard to conquer that economic standpoint and take advantage of their opportunities. However, I feel it is often overlooked, their rich history that nobody ever notices or cares about. So my goal today was to inform you that Okoboji has a serious history that many people just don't seem to care about, but they probably should.